3, 4 steps I take from my bed to the floor. 5, 6, 7, 8. Will today be rough or will today be great? 9, 10, 11, 12. Lately I've been going through hell. 13, 14, 15, 16. Today's the day. Are you coming? Are you sick of being normal? I'm sick of being average. I'm sick of being mortal. I'm about to be a savage. I see a lot of things that I want, I will have them. I got a new mindset that I just established. I'll march through the cold with the nails on the pavement. I'll shovel that coal just to get out the basement. My story will be told, helping others make changes. I'll be so bold, they will watch in amazement.
Am I gonna face it? Am I gonna chase it? Am I gonna start over? I keep waiting. Time is limited, quickly fading. Get my mind right, it's my time, do you take it? Am I gonna face it? Am I gonna chase it? Am I gonna start over? I keep waiting. Time is limited, quickly fading. Get my mind right, it's my time, do you take it?
Foot up on the pedal, pushing hard to the metal. Make a deal with the devil. Channel rage through my vessel into something that is special. Energy of a rebel, going up a level. I just wanna be greatness. I could feel changes, turn a new page and tie up my laces. I will be the bravest, break out of my cages. I will not be nameless, I will not be aimless.
Am I gonna chase it? Am I gonna start over? I keep waiting. Time is limited, quickly fading. Get my mind right, it's my time, do you take it? Am I gonna face it? Am I gonna chase it? Am I gonna start over? I keep waiting. Time is limited, quickly fading. Get my mind right, it's my time, do you take it?
Nothing can stop me. No. 'Cause I'm addicted to what you and I realize. Either way, I follow. No need to say where we are heading now, babe. I follow to the edge of it all. So tell your goodnight.
Yeah, sometimes coming off these intros, the mic is still muted. I'm not sure why. And then like other times the mic is not muted. So go figure. Who knows? Technology. But what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Locked In Podcast, episode 224. We are back in the building tonight. I'm going to be joined by at least one, and then potentially two of my guests too. This was a shift from the original After Hours episodes, which has been postponed like 3 times at this point, mainly due to trying to get together like 8 different guests. It is tough. So bear with us, guys. Those episodes are always tough. I feel like they're always getting postponed. Next episode is not getting postponed. I usually give it about 3 times, and show must go on in that case. So September 11th, mark your calendars, Thursday, September 11th, 9 p.m., 3 weeks from now, we'll be going live for After Hours. The content schedule will continue. So if you guys have checked the calendar, Facebook, Instagram, you'll be able to see that our episodes will continue to go on as scheduled. In between those, the next 2 weeks of topics will be as planned, and then we'll have After Hours in 3 weeks. So we took the shift of the topic for this tonight. This was an After Hours topic, but we're shifting it here. And then there's some subtopics in there too that are more of a female and male to ratio type of topic thing. So we're not going to put those subtopics into here. Those are going to stay in the After Hours episode. And then we're just bringing the main topic over here, and then we'll construct another topic for After Hours in 3 weeks. So sorry, guys, for the postponement. If you saw the last-minute promotion, sometimes trying to get all these moving parts together, all fun stuff. But the show must go on. We're going to continue it. I really wasn't trying to postpone today. So what we are talking about tonight is conflict resolution in terms of relationships or marriages. Now, I'm not married. I never have been married, but I've been in, long-term relationships, and I wasn't always the best, conflict, the most conflict resolute, type of person. I've definitely had struggles in my past with it, but it is really important to, have the emotional intelligence to really understand and really be able to understand how you can navigate conflict in a healthy way. Because if you can't navigate conflict in a healthy way with your partner, this requires a team effort. It requires you and your partner to really be able to navigate this together. If you can't navigate conflict in a healthy way, I'm telling you that long term, the odds of actually lasting in that relationship, if your ultimate goal is to last, like in your dating, relationship, marriage, and your goal is to last forever, which I think most people who are dating to marry, not everybody, but if that is your goal, if you can't resolve conflict together, it is going to be a very slippery slope, and most likely is going to fail in the long term. You have to be able to navigate conflict. And that is tough sometimes because a lot of people are conflict avoidant. What I mean by that is a lot of people would rather not talk about conflict because it makes them uncomfortable. And conflict is uncomfortable. It's not something that's easy to navigate. It's tough and it's very, very uncomfortable. But I think as you can overcome hurdles with different conflicts, that's how you can build a stronger bond together. That's how you can grow together. And then you can weather those storms. And as you're navigating conflicts in the future, you can understand and you can look back at the conflicts that you guys were able to, navigate through together. You were able to resolve. And there's different strategies that go through to these types of things. We're going to dive into that all very, very shortly. So Rich will be on around 8. And then Mario and Rob are potential. They should be coming on. If they are, it's going to be towards the very end, to be honest with you. But Rich will be on at 8. With that being said, guys, if you're watching on YouTube and you're not already subscribed, what are you doing? Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You see that little notification bell? Click that to turn those notifications on, and we'll give you a reminder every single time we're posting content, which is typically every Thursday around this time, 7:30. So if you like content related to personal development, you like content related to sports, those are the main 2 things that we cover here. You're going to want to hit that notification bell so you're notified every single Thursday when we go live. And if you're watching on YouTube and you see something you like, feel free to comment in and just add to the show. We appreciate the feedback. I don't even care if it's negative, positive, whatever. Comment that below into the chat. I can put it on the screen and we can address it here, right? Even if you're like, yo, this show sucks, whatever, comment it. I don't care. We'll talk about it. Put it in there, but I can put it on the screen for you guys on YouTube. And if you're on Facebook, I want to say as well, thank you, because I'm assuming you're already part of the community. So thank you for that. Still hit that like button. Really, really helps us out. And again, you can comment below in that chat too. Facebook, because of meta privacy rights, I have to kind of read right from the screen. I can't throw it up through this app up on the screen, but I can read it out loud and give you the credit here. So enjoy, guys. Remember too, you can listen to us on Spotify and Anchor. I did see there was some type of issue going on actually with Spotify that I have to update. So bear with me if we're definitely not updated on the most recent episodes. That's in the works, but just understand that we do have a channel over Spotify. You can listen to us there, and Anchor as well. Those platforms are for your listening purposes. So if you're on the go and you want to listen, go there and you can hit those download buttons. It really helps us. That being said, guys, let's dive into it. So like I was saying, giving you a basis on resolving conflict. Resolving conflict is important no matter how you're navigating life. So this goes in friendships, work type of things. But you get into work disputes, you need to be able to navigate conflict in a healthy manner. You could lose your job, right, if you get a little out of hand. But I would say it's most paramount. It's most important to understand when it comes to your relationship. So if you're in a long-term relationship, you're dating, short-term relationship, or you're married, you need to be able to navigate conflict in a manner that is healthy, non-threatening. And like I said, navigating conflict is tough because everybody comes from different backgrounds. So everybody's conditioning has been different. Everybody's programming and wiring has been different, depending on what they've been through, how they grew up in the household, what type of childhood wounds they might have, what type of relationships they've been in the past. They could have caused a lot of trauma. If they come from backgrounds of trauma, you got to understand that it's going to require a lot of patience and really understanding. And a lot of people lack it, unfortunately. So you have to, but there's really no other way around. I'm telling you, patience is so important. I would actually say, if you're going off of tips, right off the basis, before I really hop into my notes, the things I would tell you that you really need to understand when it comes to resolving conflict in a healthy manner is you want to, when you have a problem or something, some type of problem inside of your relationship, you want to communicate it directly to your partner. And that can be scary for a lot of people. It can be scary for a lot of people, for one, because they're afraid, number one, of how their partner is going to react when they tell them it. And number two, I would also, well, there's a lot of reasons, but I would say two is if you battle your own insecurity. So you're insecure about bringing it up, not just because how your partner is going to react, but then if your partner reacts negatively, how are you going to respond to that? So a lot of people are afraid to bring things up to their partner. But I'm telling you that from personal experience, even if your partner is struggling in life, you still need to bring up something that, is bothering you. And you need to communicate it directly. But you can communicate directly in a way that is non-threatening to your partner. One of the best ways that you can do this is by creating I statements. So if you feel hurt in a certain scenario about something, you form it in the words of I statements rather than just going really accusatory at your partner. You know what I mean? Not to make them not feel threatened. And likewise, if you're actually communicating to your partner and you give them the time to respond now, you listen very intently. Don't shut them out. Don't be formulating thoughts inside your head of how to respond here. Don't assume your partner's intentions. Communicate. And then when they talk to you and when they open up, and some people are, they take a little bit longer to open up, really just listen intently and really try to hear what they have to say. Coming from personal experience, I was always somebody who would not assume, but I would try to fix problems for people rather than actually listen intently. This manifested in familial relationships with family members. This manifested in friendships, and it manifested in my relationships too. So personal relationships. And I can tell you that a lot of it comes from wiring and programming where I grew up, where everything needed to just be solved and not really actually just taking the time to really listen to some people. Some people sometimes, and I'd say actually probably majority of the time, most people don't need you to solve their problems for them. They just need you to hear them and listen. This goes for men and women, and a lot of men won't admit that. I think a lot of men will struggle to admit that. Like they're like, I don't need to be heard. I need this done. I need this done. You know, I'm practical, blah, blah, blah. And that is true. A lot us as men, a lot of times we're logical. Like we are very practical, and we like to fix the problem and just, you know, take care of it. We don't want to hear. We don't want to hear this. We don't hear that. But honestly, a lot of men just struggle to be heard too. They really, really do. And it can be very frustrating. It can be frustrating for women when they're not heard by their man, which is, you know, a lot of women say that their man doesn't listen. I'm guilty of it myself. You know, a lot of times, you know, I take accountability on my end too, where, you know, I wasn't always the best listener, but it's seriously like we don't always listen, and we'd rather just try to assume or fix the problems, and it's not always what people want. They just want an outlet to talk, and they just want an outlet for you to hear them, so they don't have to keep repeating themselves in circles. You know what I mean? So honestly, being able to, number one, communicate very directly with your partner, no matter how much you fear the consequences. A healthy partner isn't going to, if you're afraid they're just going to leave you because you communicated and you were direct, then maybe that says something about their wiring. If they're willing to bounce on you so quickly, if they're willing to be like, well, I'm done, you know, and walk away, you know, that you have to be really understanding too of everybody's wiring is different, but you had the only real way to really make progress inside of a relationship, or, you know, God forbid you're married and you haven't navigated conflicts yet in a healthy manner. You need to be able to navigate these conflicts and communicate with each other in a non-threatening way. So you communicate very directly, but you use I statements. You don't do it in a negative way. You don't do it in a threatening way. You do it in a very straightforward way that is non-threatening. And then you really take the time to allow your partner to respond. And when you can do that, then you guys can go back and forth and figure out problems. Sometimes you really do need to take the time to step away to cool off, especially if it's something really heated. If you feel like it's going to go there and you feel like it's going to get really, really heated, you know, some people, that's all they've ever seen. That's all they've ever seen in a household. They've just seen their mother and their father fight, yell, call each other out their names, throw things, get really, really toxic. And that's very unfortunate if that's the wiring you came from. But those are things you need to heal. Any type of sustainable marriage or relationship, you have to be able to navigate it in a healthy way. Toxicity is never going to win. I'm going to be honest with you. Some people find that, oh, I like it. I like the drama. I like the toxicity. Yeah, but long term, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You know, statistics show it. It just doesn't work long term. When you're consistently toxic, it's very draining on each other. You know, when you're consistently playing mind games or being toxic with one another, being passive aggressive, stonewalling, not communicating your needs, none of this stuff leads to long-term success. So if the ultimate goal is for you to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you have to be able to navigate these conflicts. So they're not always easy. Nobody ever said they were. Nobody ever said that they were. But what I would say is you have to find these mechanisms, find ways to allow your partner to respond and really just be able to have a conversation without getting too aggressive. It's hard sometimes. We're human beings. We get a little emotional. What I would say is if you feel yourself going there, you feel yourself getting really riled up and pissed off at something that your partner did, take the time to take a step back before you respond. That's what I would do. I would, you know, take a step back and try to cool off. Because I get angry just like the next person. You know, everybody gets mad. We're human beings. You know, we're not robots. We're human beings. We all have emotions. We all have feelings. We all get hurt. Take the step back. Take the time to really, really process and feel that. You know, feel that pain, feel that hurt. And it's okay to feel it. But what you want to do is you want to be able to come level-headed. Don't call each other out. I think that's really... I think that's toxic too, to call each other out your names and to really just start, you know, name calling and being accusatory and all this stuff. And God forbid, like putting hands on one another, which is an absolute no-no in my book. Like, you don't ever put your hands on each other. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. You don't put your hands on each other. You know, that's not the wiring you want your kids to see. So unfortunately, a lot of people come from backgrounds where their mother or their father did put hands on each other. And it's what you've seen. I do say this, that some people unfortunately have only come from backgrounds of chaos. And when you come from chaos, sometimes it's unfortunate. It's hard to break those patterns. But the thing is, it is possible. It is possible. And the right partner will be with you through it. You know what I mean? They're not going to run. They're not going to leave. They'll stay with you through it. As long as you're willing to do the work. It does take two people. Two people have to come together and do the work. And, you know, and if two partners are healing from something, it is still possible to make it work. It just requires self-awareness, and it requires the willingness to do the work. It is unfortunate, though. I was actually just talking to Rich about this earlier. I feel like we constantly live in a society where we're always triggering each other. And what I mean by that is you may have come from, you may have been completely healthy. Maybe say you had no childhood wounding growing up. Inside your household, it was always healthy dynamics. And then you get into a relationship with somebody who seemingly is like the perfect partner. And then you find out they're toxic, they're a narcissist, whatever. And then that person could have been completely healthy. Now they're traumatized, and they go and they date somebody else who maybe wasn't traumatized, and they traumatize them. Then it's a cycle. Men and women are consistently triggering each other, and a lot of it is from unresolved trauma, and it's really unfortunate. A lot of people don't resolve that trauma, and it comes into a cycle. It's just consistent triggering of each other. And this is why, and I was telling Rich, I was saying, because he's in marriage family counseling for his master's for it. I said, this is why therapists make a lot of money, because this is something that's consistent. It's not even funny. It's actually very, very sad and very unfortunate. But we live in a society where people are consistently triggering one another and not getting the help that they need to heal and to resolve their trauma. It's very difficult. And some of it does start in the household. Some of it starts in the household, and then you just never got the help that you needed to really resolve it. And then you bring it to someone else, and then you trigger them, and then they trigger the next person, especially if they're just not getting the help to heal. So it's really sad, to be honest with you. But I'm going to walk you guys through. I gave you a small basis there before Rich comes on in like 5 to 10 minutes. I want to give you 7 steps that I had here, and I'll walk you through them briefly. Some of them added into right what I was saying, especially the first 2. So number 1, like I told you, when it comes to resolving conflict with your partner, you want to be able to directly express or communicate in a sense your feelings. You may decide to keep your grievances with your partner to yourself, bring them up at a later date, but before you know it, these unspoken grievances can accumulate, and they fester, and they can build up resentment. This is what you don't want. And I've been on both sides where I've been in relationships where people didn't speak up, and there were times when I didn't speak up. And I take fault in that completely. I take full blame, and I take full accountability for not doing it. You know what I mean? Not taking the full not just directly expressing my needs. It's really important to do that. And I know going forward in anything, it's like that's the only way around it. It doesn't matter if you feel your needs aren't being met or something's going on. You communicate that with your partner. Your partner is not a mind reader, and you need to be able to communicate directly. And I would say tackle it head on. Some things you can actually say here is, I care about our relationship. I know, I know that you don't mean to upset me. And next, describe the behavior that your partner is doing in clear detail. Be very clear. Don't hold back. Don't try to, be very indirect of how you say it. Don't be passive aggressive. Be very clear and honest of the behavior that your partner is doing that hurts them. Now, that's what I'm saying. I think people are always fearful of being judged. I had a friend one time who was in a relationship, and he told something to, this was years and years and years ago. He said something to his partner at the time about hey, a behavior that he was that had hurt him. And then she went and called him insecure. I'm like, you see, this is the trust issues that people have. The relationship obviously did not last, but that comes from someone who, while he was being very direct with her, she was very quick to name call him something. And I'm like, yeah, well, that comes from somebody who does not have a healthy background themselves. They just go right to you're insecure. And what he had actually said to her did not come off as insecure at all. What doesn't control, and it wasn't insecure. He was just expressing a boundary. And she got really quick to call him insecure. And yeah, even as he tried to talk to her and ask her, hey, what's going on? Why do you feel that? No, it was just you're insecure, this and that. I'm like, yeah, but that's the thing. Sometimes you can support people, but you can't really. Hey, if someone is really not willing to make changes to their behavior, there's nothing you could fully do with that. You can just try to communicate your needs. But I would say directly express your thoughts and feelings. If you're passive aggressive and you hold things in, all it's going to do is you're going to avoid, you're going to suppress, you're going to push it down. And then the moment you get into a really heated argument, it's probably going to come out. So just be honest. Do it in clear detail. Express your feelings, your experience, and whether you're angry, you're hurt, you're irritated, you're frustrated, and confused, you can always still do it in a calm and healthy manner. Ask for specific change, such as whatever the thing was hurting you. What I would say is, I would like it if you just wait until I finish my sentence before talking, and like whatever you got to say, just honestly, just be very direct, but just say it in a calm tone. You don't have to get really aggressive about it. You want your partner to feel safe. And you know what? If you're direct and honest with your partner, they know you're going to tell it like it is. They don't have to worry about any hidden motives or intentions, right? Because you're going to call it out if it's something that bothers you. And then you can trust your partner more. You can understand that they're not suppressing anything, which is actually really refreshing, believe it or not. Put my other notes here. Number 2, again, this goes into the original notes. Don't blame your partner. The reasons why you may be tempted to blame your partner, they can be endless, right? Whether it's something they said, they did, or maybe they didn't do. Maybe even ask them to take the trash out for a week. They didn't do it. And every single time you have to remind them. But nothing good's going to come of fully blaming somebody, forcing them to respond. It's better to, this is where I said earlier, it's better to respond with I statements or I feel statements, to focus on the issue. Focus more on the issue and don't sit there and be accusatory towards the person. Come straight to the issue at hand. Say they didn't take the trash out. You could say something like, I feel frustrated that the trash hasn't been taken out yet. Instead of saying you never take the trash out. You know what I mean? It's just, you'd be surprised. I mean, this stuff might be kind of like, what are you talking about? Yeah, but this stuff is long, like it's a big difference. It's a big difference. Sorry, I just want to pull up the Facebook page so I can see if any comments come through here. It's a big difference in how you communicate to somebody. Big difference. What I would also say is this is before Rich comes on in a sec, stick to one argument at a time. So if there's multiple things that have been festering and say like that you're upset about, stay to one argument before you move to the next. I think that's really, really important. It gives you don't want it to get lost in the shuffle and then get pushed down or suppressed. Stick to one argument at a time and work through that first. You have a much better chance of finding a solution if you're not all over the place. With an attitude of patience, understanding, each partner will have time to process their feelings and to reach a solution before even changing the subject, which is what you want. You want to be able to solve things. It's hard when you're jumbled all over the place. You're going this direction, this direction, this direction, this direction. It's very difficult. Number 4, like I said, communication is key. You've probably heard it so many times that it's probably a broken record. But it holds true. If you don't have, if you're not able to navigate, and even if you don't have healthy communication in a relationship right now, it doesn't mean it's dead. It doesn't mean it's dead. But it does require willingness of both partners to communicate and work through the issues together. So it does require 2 people. But if you're both struggling to communicate, or maybe one has been communicating well and the other partner hasn't, it requires self-awareness and ability to want to communicate. It doesn't mean your relationship's dead, but communication is really important. It's a pillar of the foundation. And if you don't have that foundation, collapse. Here's Rich. Rich, what's up, brother?
Hey, how you doing, man? How's everything?
It's good, bro. It's good. Had a nice first half hour here. You're on, and then Mario and Rob are, their potentials to come on. Rob probably very last minute if he comes on, and then Marius, same thing. So because the episode was pushed from 9 to 7:30, it becomes a little tougher for people, man. But I appreciate you locking in, man. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here,
Yo.
man. Ready to talk about the thing, man.
Yeah, man. I've been just walking through this conflict resolution stuff. And I said we were actually talking about this a little earlier, me and you. How I got to the point. One of my points was how important communication is. It sounds like a broken record. Communication is fixable, but it's a pillar. Like if you don't have the pillars set, if you don't have communication, it's like a pillar of the home, right? You build a skyscraper. You don't have the pillar, the whole thing's going to collapse. It's fixable, but it does require self-awareness from both people. And I was also saying our point earlier. Remember we were talking about how, I don't know, I feel like we live in a society where we're constantly triggering one another, which is so true. Like everybody comes from different backgrounds. And unfortunately, it can come from childhood. It can come from past toxic relationships. And the more people don't take time to resolve those issues, it's like a trigger effect. You get a healthy person, that person's triggered from something. They come and meet this person. Boom, this person's triggered now. This person goes triggers the next person. And then boom, boom, boom. It's like a domino effect. But it's honestly really sad. It's not even funny, but that's what I'm saying, man. Therapists can make a lot of money these days.
Yeah, man, it's pretty crazy, man. I have to agree with you. Like, I do believe with our access to social media, our constant access to people's opinions, people, that there's also those category of people who like to, put things up on the internet just to with the purpose of ruffling some feathers. And then you have those individuals or those folks who are overly sensitive as well. They can't hear, forget it when it comes to hearing about another opinion. When it comes to hearing about a different perspective, they completely shut down. They completely reject it, and that hurts. Communication overall.
Yeah, it's like it's like they're so quick to jump to like the defense instead of actually taking the time to communicate. I was actually just hitting on this point before you jumped on the mic about how I had a friend years and years and years ago who was in a relationship, and he tried to communicate a certain thing that had hurt him from his partner, and the first thing she did was call him insecure. While he was communicating a healthy boundary, she went and called him insecure. And I'm like, well, you see, that comes from unhealthy patterns herself. Like it comes from a background of someone who, like, while he wasn't being accusatory, she came right out and said, well, you're insecure. And obviously, like, the relationship didn't wind up lasting, but yeah, it's like, you see, it requires two people that can communicate in a healthy manner. But yeah, a lot of people come from backgrounds of where maybe they thrived in chaos, and it was like a lot of, if they were in relationships or even just childhood wounding, like if they came from a household where nobody communicated in a healthy manner, and that was something that's unresolved as they go into adulthood, into adult relationships and stuff, it manifests outward because they haven't fixed the problem. So if their mom and dad were always, the moment somebody tried to bring something up, accuse them, oh, well, get out of here, you loser, or something, they come out with like, accusatory things, or say they were in a relationship where the person was always accusing them of stuff. See, that manifests outward, and then they bring that habit of that behavior into somebody who may be trying to do something healthy. This is men and women. Like the woman could be the one who's communicating in a healthy manner, and the man could be the one who's accusing them, or it could be vice versa. Like I said, in this scenario, yeah, just understanding your patterns. This requires us all to take a deep look at ourselves, understanding your patterns, understanding your wiring, and understanding maybe things that you're doing that aren't necessarily healthy. I was saying that if you can't resolve conflict, bro, there's no, like, I don't know everybody's intentions, but like if you're dating and you're dating to get into a relationship, and then you're dating you're in a relationship to marry, and then your goal with marriage is to last forever. If you can't resolve conflict, it will not last. I don't care if you try to, think you can thrive in chaos and be toxic, and it's not gonna last. Like, it's just not gonna last. You have to be able to resolve conflict in a healthy manner. If you can't do it, it's just doesn't mean you cannot learn how to do it together as a couple, but you both have to be self-aware and understand you have issues in resolving conflict. I've been there myself. And be able to navigate it. If you can't navigate it, it's not gonna last.
No, I completely agree, man. I think a large part of what a relationship entails is navigating through difficult times or difficult decisions, or just different ways of thinking. And I think a lot of people look at the social media accounts, and they look at like all the good stuff, not even just on social media, but maybe someone could just be walking down the street and seeing like a happy couple or a happy family, and they're just thinking it's all going to entail, you know, relationships entail happiness all the time, or they're saying, a lot of people, what I hear nowadays are like, well, if this doesn't serve me, then I'm out. And the situation, or the concept of a relationship, especially if you're looking at it from a Christian standpoint, but even if you're not, like, the base concept of a relationship is in fact sacrifice. Like, you're sacrificing, you know, your own selfishness to kind of share your life, share your outlook, but also receive someone else's outlook and receive someone else's point of view or perspective. So a lot of receiving and taking the time to understand, excuse me, someone else's point of view, that's a form of self-sacrifice, because you're going away from any, you know, tunnel vision or tunnel view.
Yeah, I would say it requires, yeah, it's like you said, self-sacrifice, compromise, whatever way you want to word it, it requires compromise. That's the thing too. Just any type of relationship, any type of, if you get married, it requires a lot of sacrifice and a lot of compromise. There's really going to be seasons of your life where, sure, you're going to be blissful, you're going to be traveling a lot, probably going to be having a lot of sex, you're going to be enjoying each other's company, sure. But there's going to be there's going to be seasons in there too where you guys probably want to rip each other's heads off. And it's just how it is. It's just how it is. Nobody's going to be happy all the time. And like you said, social media is curated. It's a curated highlight reel. I'll be honest, I don't show the negative things that are going on inside my life. Who does? I mean, the majority of social media is just the happy times or the positive or the productive things. Sometimes when I post things, I guess I just hope to inspire people sometimes when I'm doing things. Who knows why we post things sometimes. We post things to post things, but it's a curated highlight reel. I mean, realistically, people don't really post their losses on social media. They don't post their struggles on social media. And I always say this, some couples and marriages, like, or husband and wives, are super happy and they post things, their kids, their family. Some are, but there's a lot of them too that are not truly happy. And so, like I said, that's the thing too. My mindset has always been, if you're super happy, why do you consistently need to post and prove it to everybody else? There's nothing wrong with posting your kids and your family and stuff like that. Like I said, some people are genuinely happy who post those things. But even those people who are happy still have struggles behind the scenes, because there's no such thing as a perfect world. Of course, your Instagram, everything might look perfect and every single picture is happiness. Sure. But even those people that are happy genuinely in their marriages and the relationships with their kids, and they have babies and everything like that, yeah, sure, they might genuinely be happy, but they still have their own struggles behind the scenes, no matter what. And that's what you just need to understand. So if you're looking at social media, and believe me, we still can say this and still get caught up in the notion of comparison, but it's curated. Overall, like you said, a lot of self-sacrifice in any type of relationship or marriage. It requires a lot. And you made a very valid point when you said that some people, like, if it doesn't serve me, I'm out. So many people are so quick to walk away in this day and age. They're so quick to walk away from someone. And then I always say this, and then in our grandparents' generation, they stuck together through everything. And there were probably some toxic scenarios where grandpa was probably beating on grandma and she probably shouldn't have stayed. But, maybe she wasn't working or whatever, and she felt, stuck to stay. So, but I said, our generation is the opposite. Everybody wants to run at the first sign of conflict, you got to find the middle ground. Sure, there might be things that don't serve you, but understand what your non-negotiables are. Yeah, if there's certain things, like if there's abuse going on in the relationship, absolutely leave. You know what I mean? Nobody should tolerate abuse. I'm not just talking physical abuse, like emotional abuse, any type of narcissistic behavior. You don't need to tolerate that. If somebody's honestly abusing you physically, emotionally, they're manipulative, yeah, get out. Like, nobody deserves to tolerate that. That's a not. But I'm saying, like, too, like, if you guys don't agree on certain things, like the one person wants kids and the other person doesn't, that's a non-negotiable, right? If you go to church, you're Christian, and the other person doesn't, that's probably a non-negotiable. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, like, but those are things that need to be discussed through communication. But I think a lot of people, the moment they get triggered, they're like, I'm gone. And any type of long-term relationship or marriage, you stick it out through the hard times. And as you work through conflict, you grow stronger together.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Steve. But one thing I would say, just taking it a step further, you know me, my background is in counseling. My
Yes, sir.
background is also, many people don't know this, my background is also in criminal justice. And working in a field or a system that, at times does not believe in second chances versus working as, in the counseling clinical field, it kind of opened my eyes to see like, hey, look, man, like even if someone has been, and this is kind of my counseling hat, even if someone is showing a history of um being a certain way in terms of verbally or in terms of physically, by all means, I would also advise, your safety comes first. So you got to leave that situation. As a counselor, I kind of believe that even if someone's going through verbal or dealing with someone manipulative, um, at least like if you are in this mind state, and I agree with Steve on this again, leave if you're not with it. You just absolutely cannot deal with it. But some people have been in long-term relationships or situations where it's harder for them to leave. They have a lot of feelings or a lot of hope with this person. They have a lot of investment in this person long term. For those people, I would advise to try counseling, to try therapy, to see if this person is willing to put in the work. Because oftentimes, some people are manipulative, are verbally abusive, or do have bad habits due to how they were raised or how they were treated. So, just my standpoint and where I'm coming from as a counseling intern and someone who is working with families and has worked with families who deal with verbal abuse, you know, um, be observant if that partner is willing to put in the work. If they're willing to put in the work, let's go counseling. Let's put in the work. But if they're someone who is, attending counseling just to, try to get someone to shut up, or they're not really putting their all into it, that's when I would probably advise to consider, moving in a different direction if that person's not willing to change any negative habits or habits that are hurtful or harmful to your mental health, your safety overall. So that's what I would say. But I do agree with everything you just said there. Yeah.
No, those are some really, really valid points, honestly, Rich. Thank you for sharing those. Um, yeah, you're right. I actually don't have anything to argue on that, man, or even counter on. I would say that too. Yeah, no, really, because you're right. Some people, they come from backgrounds, right, where like their wiring was a certain way, or their patterns, or their conditioning. So monitor if you're going through some type of maybe manipulative behaviors or manipulative tactics or passive aggressive tactics like stonewall and stuff. Try to understand where that's coming from, but see if your partner is willing to go to counseling to work on the issues at hand, right? Like you said, now if they're not willing to work on the issues, then you can do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it's probably a good idea to maybe potentially get out of there. Because if the person, like, certain personalities disorders are hard. Like if someone is a narcissist, and that's hard to it's hard to figure that out sometimes. I think a lot of people like to throw the term narcissist around a lot when they have, maybe a baby mother, baby father, an ex, or like an ex-husband, ex-wife. They've been through something, and they just like to throw the word narcissist around. Now, maybe the person really is a narcissist, but that term gets thrown around quite a bit. And I've seen scenarios where it's thrown around to somebody who isn't truly a narcissist. It's just that somebody else was bitter and petty and likes to call the other person a narcissist. Um, but if the person does have narcissistic traits, they're unwilling to work on anything. That's the thing. Accountability is so critical in these scenarios, because if the other person is not self-aware and will not take accountability, then there's really nothing you can do. You can support the person, but you can also support the person from afar. It doesn't mean you have to put up with negative things. Like if that person is unwilling to get help or go through counseling or whatever outlet they need to find, you have to, as much as you might love that person, you have to understand too that they're not taking accountability, and maybe they don't want to be self-aware, and it's there's nothing you can do. It's sad, but there's just nothing you can do in those scenarios. It's up to them to make that decision. You can't force anybody to do anything.
Yeah, man. I completely understand where you're coming from and see what you're saying there. You can't force anyone to put in the effort. Some people, they're just a way that they are and they accepted or, kind of, you know, faltered in that growth. Like you have some adults who are willing to grow and keep growing. The growth never stops. But there's some adults who believe, you know, and I think some of our viewers may know some of these people when I mention or describe them. You have your know-it-alls, the people who think that they don't need to change or adjust anything, that they're operating fine because they are operating and that's what they're used to. And so therefore, this is what I know and I'm operating, this is what I'm used to, and that's it. I'm okay with it. Then you have those people who fake it kind of and try to they'll be the ones that will go to counseling sessions and whatnot, and they'll try to play the role, kind of play like they're going along with it and trying to put their best foot forward. But then when you get into the room and start talking, the efforts either minimal or manipulative behaviors start to surface, and they try to manipulate their counselor. Um, the other person I will also mention is just a person who um has poor communication. They will not communicate, like they'll try to fake that everything is fine. So they don't even want to acknowledge the issues at hand. So they'll try to kind of play this role where everything's okay. If we don't need to talk. We don't need to go to therapy. We don't I you know, I got it covered. I got everything down packed. Like, and so those are the categories of people that kind of, like, hey, you kind of want to stay away from in terms of if you're looking for a potential partner. You want to really look for people who are self-aware, people who are, accustomed to or who welcome self-growth. I think that is the best formula, to operate in a relationship because it keeps an open mind there.
Yeah, absolutely. The open-minded part, like it's just that hits the nail kind of on the head there. You're right. I do want to express too that people that aren't self-aware, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person either intently. Sometimes it just takes people a little longer in life to become self-aware. I'm gonna be honest, I've had habits myself taking full I always try to be transparent here. So being transparent and accountable myself, there were habits that I've done in my life that like I was not self-aware too when I was younger. And I think a lot of it is I didn't want to face that accountability. I don't think people who have those behaviors are inherently bad people, but unfortunately, if you are in a relationship or you're married to that person and they refuse to take self awareness, it might just not be the person for you. You know what I mean? It's just in that scenario. Sometimes it takes a big event for someone to become self aware. And I know in the moment, a lot of people are going to be frustrated and pissed off because it'd be like, well, that person should have changed for me or should have did this for me. I don't, and I'll be honest, I'm not sitting here and justifying people doing things, but I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes it's just everybody's walk of trauma and walk and their background is different. Is it your responsibility to fix it? No, but at the same time, like just having an understanding is like, yeah, especially when you're married to someone, it doesn't work out because somebody's not self-aware. But I'm gonna be honest, before you ever married that person, you probably should have tried to take a look. Sometimes we wear rose-colored glasses, and I feel like we try to downplay certain things, but they probably weren't super self-aware while you were in a relationship with them either. You know what I mean? And you just kind of look the other way. So that kind of goes into this conflict resolution, being very direct and intentional of how you communicate with your partner. If something's bothering you, communicate it directly in a non-threatening way. You can use things like I statements, like I feel hurt or I feel angry when you do this, when you like focus on the action, don't be accusatory towards the person. Allow them to have a safe space. And then when they respond to you, listen intently. Don't be formulating thoughts in your head of responses or trying to, put an action in there. Just actually listen and hear what they say to you. And that's how you can sit there and have a back and forth. And I would advise, and I was saying this before you come on, Rich, if you really do feel like it's going to go there, where you might be getting so angry that you're going to call each other out your name, things can get really heated, take the step back before you have the conversation. Take the step back to really cool off and take that moment to breathe before you really get there. Because I always say this, sometimes you say things to somebody that just cannot be taken back. It's just like they might forgive you for saying it, but they're never going to forget those words. So you got to be very careful.
Agreed. I think that your man or your lady will appreciate you taking the step back as well, and coming back into the situation with a clear frame of mind and a most definitely a respectful and calm tone, or at least even keeled tone. If you're not going to be super calm, or you're not a soft spoken person, at least come as a person who is intentional about having clear and concise communication, and not allowing the tone of your voice to supersede the message that you're trying to relay. I think that's very important, because sometimes the way that you say things, like you see, I don't know if you ever heard that term, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Keep
So
going.
you can be right all you want. You could be right in the situation, or the partner could have done something to hurt you, or um and just to, for all intents and purposes, those are right. You know what I mean? Like, right. Like, it's really, when you're a team and you're together, it really shouldn't be a right or a wrong, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It should, yeah. And so, but if you could feel like you were wronged, and maybe that person did wrong you, and you want to communicate that in a clear and concise way, so that everyone is a winner. You know what I mean? You don't want to have this mindset where you're keeping score and there's a winner and there's a loser. You want to have it to where you're both the team, you're both a unit, or what, family system, family unit, Steve, and you're coming in there and you're battling the problem. The people aren't the problem. The problem is the problem. So yeah.
Yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on. Yeah, you don't want to get into that mindset where you keep a score with somebody and stuff. It can just get really, really downhill from there. And some people have never felt safe their entire life. They've had people their entire life keeping score with each other. And you know what? It makes your partner not feel safe to open up to you, because they know if they tell you something, you're going to throw it back in their face in the moment of conflict. See, a lot of people don't recognize that. It's like, yo, like just think of how you would feel if like you brought up something to your wife or your girlfriend, and it's like, and then the moment you're in a heated argument, she throws that right back in your face. You're not going to feel good about it. Some people have only been wired to see that. And there's nothing healthy about it at all. You don't keep score. Like Rich said, you're a team. You tackle the problem like a team. You don't sit there and, one up each other or try to, I'm right and you're wrong. You know, like I said, sometimes, like, I think I always believe this: people can do shitty things. It doesn't mean they're a shitty person. Like, you got to look at the action, because actions can be changed. It does require accountability and self-awareness, but actions can be changed. Just because somebody did something stupid doesn't mean that they're stupid, or just because they did something, I'm gonna be honest, fucked up, doesn't mean that they're fucked up themselves. It's just they did something fucked up. But it's like, we're all capable of changing our actions. And that's really powerful that you said that too. Like, you tackle it like a team. When you're in a relationship, when you're married, you're a team. And I think a lot of people like to be in long-term relationships, or they like to get married, and they're still me, me, me. And I'm gonna tell you, especially when you get married, that's not, you trade the eyes for us. When you're married, you trade the eyes for us, and it's just different. A lot of people don't. A lot of people just want to get married, but unfortunately, it's like you, like, right back to your point of self-sacrifice and compromise, man. It's a lot of people have high egos and don't want to self-sacrifice. They don't want to compromise, and it comes to a lot of problems down the line.
Yeah, and that's a sign of a person that thinks that they're not doing anything wrong. If they don't want to compromise, if they don't want to self-sacrifice, if they don't want to meet in the middle, what I mean, per se, if they don't want to hear any other opinion besides their own opinion, that's the sign of a person who is fully into whatever they're doing and whatever actions that there's just absolutely, in my opinion, there's not much remorse. If there is remorse, there's not much of it. um because your partner, if your partner's communicating to you, hey, I'm hurting, hey, I need this adjustment, you know, I would like to, have future conversations about adjusting something, and it just does not matter enough to you to even consider a change, or even, or the when you do have a conversation, if you do, it's a very negative, very standoffish conversation where it's my way or the highway type of. You've heard of people like this, my way or the highway type. And again, it's actions now. I'm not sitting here trying to say that these are bad people. Like Steve said, he just reiterated, separate the person and the action. And the thing is like, even when you step away from a person, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. But if they are okay with a consistent action of non-attentiveness, of not addressing the issues in a relationship, not addressing maybe bad habits that they may have, or then how would they even be able to address anything that about you, that you don't even see about yourself, if they can't even address the things that, about themselves that need to improve. So how would that person be able to supplement you and grow with you, you know?
Right, if they can't even do it themselves. Yeah, it's like there's no possible way. They're not pouring into themselves, they can't pour into you. There's just no possible way. Anna had actually, Anna here, she had put a comment and says, this is a key conversation in a relationship. Talk about safe ways to disagree, have safe words to know when it's time to shelf a conversation and revisit it at a later time. Yeah, absolutely. That's important. You have to be able to do that, be able to take that account. You have to be self-aware to be able to do that for sure, because like I said, words can hurt people. So sometimes some conversations are just better to revisit together, but just make sure that you do, after you shelve them, you do revisit them, because some people can do that as a way of brushing like under the rug. But yeah, having safe, like talking about safe ways to disagree, and having those safe words ahead of time, and knowing when to shelf things, that could be a great talk to have ahead of time before you face conflict. That way you can navigate it appropriately when it arises. I agree. Just make sure that when you do shelf things, that you don't. Some people like to avoid and push them under the rug, and all that does is it festers up later. And then when you get into a really, really big argument, that resentment has built, and now things are probably going to get said that just cannot be taken back. And there's a lot of resentment that builds up. So, um, yeah, that's kind of a way of people pleasing, just not speaking up for your needs, And I've done it myself. You know what I mean? If you're, you know what I mean? Maybe people in your life, could be friends, family, relationships, whatever, are dealing with a certain type of struggle, and you don't want to put your own struggles onto them because you feel like you're going to burden them. And then guess what? You don't speak up for your own needs, and then guess what? There's nothing healthy that comes from that. I don't care if you're in a relationship. I don't care if it's a relationship with a family member, and I don't care if it's a friendship. Like, if you're being disrespected or you feel like you're being hurt, you need to speak up. And it can be hard sometimes, but for the health of the relationship, no matter, like I said, whatever type of relationship it is, it doesn't even need to be a romantic one. You need to speak up, and you do need to approach it with directness. And anyone who like cares about, they're gonna stay, they're gonna stick around. They're gonna want to, have a conversation about that. Like I said, sometimes it just requires a lot of patience, because everybody's triggers and wiring are different. Some people have really high triggers when you come at them with direct communication like that. But sometimes it requires a little bit of patience, You can get
Yeah,
through it.
yeah, yeah. No, definitely, man. I agree, man. You can get through it. Um, I like that point that you said about just revisiting. I like the commentary too. You know, you do definitely want to. There's a time and a place, basically. There's a time and a place to have certain conversations. If there is a family event or something going on where, it needs your immediate attention, is probably not the best time or place to have a conversation about the relationship. And so that is also um at this point a skill now. Some people would call it common sense, right? But some people, they need to learn the right time and places to have conversations within the confines of a relationship. Some people don't have as much relationship experience as others, so they're used to having conversations when they want to have conversations, and so that's another thing. You got to be aware of what your partner um is going to work for your partner in that time as well. That's another thing. We're not just thinking about ourselves here. This is about a unit. I like to describe families and relationships as like a car. There's different parts and components to the car engine. There's different parts and components to the car itself. And so with all these parts, you know what I mean? You could probably describe some parts as, well, quality times and things of that. I think the Five Love Languages, that book, perfectly describes like kind of some of the components, right, of the car, or the engine, so to speak. But other components of the car itself would probably entail, kind of like, what do you do for yourself, self-care and things of that nature, so that you could come back into the relationship and be able to pour in. So it's just really one big working machine, a relationship, and it should be a love machine. It should not be a toxic machine. It should not be a machine that is harming you. It should not be it should not be some contraption that is dragging you down, right? So a
Yeah.
relationship should be something that is building you up, something that is taking you to point A to point B, because that's the point of a car. So you should be going to point A to point B in life with this person or this family unit, and you should be able to grow with them and function with them on a daily basis.
100%. Yeah, no, it's just a lot of, you should be each other's peace, right? Like it's just like that's, you should feel safe with one another. You shouldn't have to be at a spot where you're in consistent chaos with somebody. You know what I mean? You're in a relationship, it should be peaceful for one another. Like I said, there's gonna be, of course, fights and arguments, and there's gonna be times where y'all want to take each other's heads off, and all that stuff. But that's how you know what I mean. There's gonna be, you're not gonna agree on everything, but you do for the most part want to be each other's peace. How can we grow together? How can we, how are we growing together? What goals do we have? What are we working towards? Like these, that's the thing. And this is how I always put it when it comes to relationships or like love or marriages. I think like true love, like true relationships, that when you find the person you really want to spend your life with, this is what it comes down to. Like real love is hard. It's difficult. And I think a lot of people get the false perception that it's easy. Chemistry should be easy. Like you should be able to be each other's best friend, and that should come really naturally. You should be able to essentially be each other's best friend. But I will say, like, real love is difficult. It is hard. But you find the person who you're willing to go through all the trials and tribulations with. You find that person who, like, that's the person you want to go through it with, and you just intently choose them. Going back to our episode last week on intentionality in life, you intently choose that person. And I'm a Christian, so I believe, God at the center, and you as the man, you lead in the household, but like you biblically lead. Like a lot of people don't know the difference between headship and biblical leadership, and it's there's a difference. But essentially, you put God at the forefront, so you're not idealizing each other. Me and you have talked about this, Rich. Like you're not idealizing each other. You have God at the center as the foundation, but honestly, you find the person who's you're willing to go through it all with. And that's your
100%.
person. Chemistry comes naturally, but real love is hard. You're going to trigger each other. There's going to be times where you're not going to agree. And any type of thing that's long lasting, like you see people who are married for 50 years, you think it wasn't hard to get there. It was very hard because there were days where they probably hated each other, but they navigated the conflicts. And that's why I said go into this topic of conflict resolution. As you navigate certain conflicts, you're going to grow stronger together. When you have conflicts in the future, you're going to be confident in one another because you're like, hey, we got through this before. We can get through these things. And you start to build confidence in one another, that you can trust in one another to get through the different conflicts, if that makes sense.
I agree, man. I agree, and also, um, one thing, and I got this from actually my grandma, because I was surprised when she would like, and recently, as an adult, my grandma, I thought that they had the perfect marriage, perfect relationship, everything. Lo and behold, my grandma actually it did let me know, as I got older, and on my grandmother and grandfather had fights and arguments just like any other couple, but there was always one, respect throughout those disagreements, and then two, even if things got out of hand and you have to step away for a while, or you feel like they're going to get out of hand and you want to step away, the main thing that she told me, hey, never go to sleep angry at that person. So make sure before that night is out that you nip whatever thing that needs to be revisited in the butt, because you just don't want to go to sleep and have that drag on, negative thoughts drag on to disturb your sleep quality, and also go into the next day, with, kind of this thing left out here, this ugly thing left out in the room, that, ugly elephant in the room, so to speak, that, you want to confront those things, and communicate about those things. And yeah.
Yep. 100%. Sometimes you're going to be up all night trying to figure it out. But hey, even if it's something you got to revisit, try to put each other at ease. If you guys are going to revisit it later, just don't go resentful to sleep on one another. I agree with that. I know it's a little cliche and, people say it, but I do think that's important. You let things fester, because then the next day, I think what a lot of people try to do is they try to push it under the rug. They just try to, it happened yesterday, whatever. Like they try to like push it under the rug. They try to avoid it. They kind of try to avoid it, and that actually goes to a lot of different things in attachment styles too, which I don't want to do. That could be like a whole episode on that, to be honest. But attachment styles is like there's 4 of them. It's secure. You got the pendulum swing one, which is like fearful avoidant, which is like avoidant and anxious. You got anxious and you got avoidant, but it's kind of like an avoidant tendency is you want to push things under the rug. You don't want to talk about them. And you kind of shove it down and you push it away. But hey, that I think a lot of that comes from wiring though. They were probably showed in childhood that when you spoke up about your needs, it was unsafe to do so. So then what do you do as an adult? You sweep it under the rug, because that's how you were taught to handle conflict, and that's where you feel safe.
But we don't have to do that though. We can go to therapy. We can
figure that out.
confront these issues. We can change these negative habits. And I'm glad that you said that, because to the people who do like to sweep things under the rug because it is comfortable, or do like to just kind of avoid confrontation, they see confronting as the same thing as confrontation. And confronting and confrontation are two different things. You can confront an issue, you can address the issue, and it doesn't have to mean that there's a confrontation, right? So we can have it be a correction and not a confrontation. We're correcting a negative action or a negative habit or something that we see in ourselves that we want to fix and improve upon. I think that your brain will thank you. I think that your in your life, like your experiences, will show, that hey, wow, this people are gonna make compliments about you and say, hey, like you're very self-aware. You know what I mean? So people appreciate a person who's self-aware. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Definitely, people appreciate that. That self-awareness is, like we said, self-awareness and accountability. I like how you jumped in there, man. Yeah, you don't need to accept those things. You can change your generational trauma. You can always change it. We have so many resources nowadays, and the thing is, it kind of just comes down to you just being intentional. And you may struggle to find. I'll say this as a person of experience now, and this time last year, 100% was not experienced at all with therapy. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not scared with a lot of things in life, but I'm not going to lie. I was a little scared shitless going into therapy for the first time. I'm not going to lie to you, because it was like, it required a lot of vulnerability, to be honest, especially if you take therapy seriously. Like if you're going to take it seriously, like some people can just go and they go with emotions and, whatever. And it's just like, they don't really get anything out of it. I think if you go in with intentionality though, like it's going to get vulnerable, and it's going to get, it's going to get a little uncomfortable at times, but you go through it and you get through it, and you feel better a lot of times afterwards. And it might take a little bit to find the therapist you jive with. Just understand that, not every therapist, that's from my experience, is going to be one that you actually jive with. You know, they may not meet your needs in the way another one might. So don't be afraid to, if it's not working out, you know, if you give it a couple sessions and it's not working out, to go find another one. But we can break this generational trauma. It just requires us being intentional. And sometimes it takes something big for that to happen. But I love that we have so many resources for men and women and couples. And there's just so many resources out there nowadays. And I'm sure in our grandparents' generation, they probably could have benefited from it, you know, too. You know what I mean? A lot of people just didn't have the resources back then.
Yeah, man.
So,
One thing I will say, because I am going to head out, but one thing
me
before
too.
I do head out, I do want to say, hey, if you feel like you've had negative experiences or negative things happen in your family that have traumatized you and you've kind of brought it into your adulthood, or you're afraid that, hey, maybe you have kids that are experiencing some of these things in terms of bad habits, and you see maybe you had a grandfather or grandmother that had a negative habit, and you can kind of see it in your child. Um, it's okay to take your child to therapy as well. I think they will thank you for that later. And maybe so at times they don't understand because actually, I have child clients as well. And so, it's very supplemental, especially if they have a parent missing in the household. It's very supplemental to get a therapist that is, not acting in a parent role by any means, but does have that wisdom or that ability to provide some, mentorship in a way through the form of counseling, because that is actually a thing. So you can, counselors or mentors, counselors offer wisdom. So if you see any generational things that are going on, I would encourage you to do a genogram. Um, and a genogram is kind of um, so to speak, a tool which helps you identify, generational habits of different family parts. You know what I mean? So it's in front of you, and it sometimes it gets emotional, sometimes it gets raw, but it's very necessary if you're dealing with things like generational trauma. If you're talking, from a Christian standpoint, like generational curses and things of that nature that you'll be able to identify things when it's right in front of you. Um, Talking about family members individually, how they've been affected by said trauma, and having it all in front of you on paper is a very useful tool. So wanted to throw that in there before I head out, man. I do have to go, but I do want to thank you for having me on the podcast. I look forward to popping up more, man, and showing up more for Locked In podcast.
Nah, I appreciate you joining, bro. And it's just such a valid point at the end on that generational trauma. You hit the nail on the head. And yeah, a lot of great points you brought in tonight, man. Just reflecting back on them. And it's just grateful to have you on here, man, and to be able to add to the discussion. I'm honestly going to wrap up as well, guys, because I don't think Rob and Mario are going to be able to make it. I can't stay on too long. It's an hour and 15 minutes we've been going here. So I'm going to hop off as well. Guys, we'll see you next week for episode 225. Like I said, After Hours will be in 3 weeks, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thursday, September 11th is the postponed date. We'll come up with a new topic for that one, but excited to see you guys over the next few weeks. I want to say, everybody, have a great weekend, great night. Rich, thank you again, my brother. I appreciate you, man. And check out Rich's brand too, Active Rain over there. He's got it in the subheader there. He's got the founder of Active Rain. Check them out on Instagram. I don't know if you have the handle.
Oh, I don't have it under me, but my Instagram handle is _ the real Rick. Uh, Again, _ the real Rick. No spaces. Wanted to thank you, man, for having me on. Also, look forward to being on here as an MFT, man, and then looking forward to being on here as an LMFT, man. So everybody, keep tuning in to these podcast episodes, man. You have an awesome host with an awesome brand of his own. Stay locked in.
Appreciate you, brother. Have a great night, guys. See you guys next week. Peace.